Everyone to the Coaching of Flourish podcast. I'm your host, John Andrew Williams. Today, I have the pleasure of working with Aurora. Aurora, you're out of San Antonio, Texas.
Yes, that's right.
You do you are the director of marketing for the ICF San Antonio chapter.
Yes.
And you lead a team of leadership coaches, and you do leadership coaching, energy leadership, pragmatic inquiry, and values-based coaching. I'm psyched. I'm psyched to have you here. Here we are. How are you?
I'm terrific, and I'm so delighted to be here with you all, especially as we are in a terrific time. I really do believe it. COVID-19 has disrupted everything, but we're in a terrific time, and I'm so happy to be here.
Right. It feels like the whole world has moved online. Like we've all moved and really embraced it, which, I mean, it feels like the whole world is living like we do now. And at the same time, you have social movement as well. And it's like this influx of energy and wow. Like I think the next decade is going to be amazing. It
is going to be amazing. I totally agree, John. But a perfect time too, to position ourselves to be a coach and to be coaching so many individuals and businesses and teams at this time.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So let's start with the present moment. So what are you up to now? How are you engaged with coaching? What's your bread and butter? Where are you at?
Let me give you a little bit of background. So I do wear a couple of hats. I do act as the director of marketing for ICF San Antonio, which is a chapter of ICF Global. But I also wear the hat of the national director and head coach for Digital Creative Institute. And it is the nation's first digital marketing apprenticeship program where apprentices really accelerate their learning, especially as they're building that entry-level career. And I also have another role, and that role is I'm a wife and a mother and a sister. So those roles and a friend to many of my girlfriends. So I wear those roles as well.
All right. That's exciting, and congrats on all of it with the ICF. I'm speaking at I'm virtually speaking for the St. Louis ICF chapter tonight, which I'm psyched about. And we're talking about the recent research in positive psychology on the future self and they call it temporal modulation, which I think is funny.
Sounds like a brain book that I just picked up.
Bottom line, I'll just break it down bottom line, because I just have to share, because I've been steeped in this research and I just want to go into this, and then let's go back to digital creative marketing, because that sounds amazing. Bottom line is the more connected we feel to our future self, like the more that we go, oh, okay, like that person is a real person and there are parts of me that are similar to that person. If we actively, consciously think that, we make better decisions.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That is so beautiful, John. And one of the areas that you asked me about, what am I up to these days? Right. It is really connecting not only the head, the brain, but it's also the heart. So those two are not independent of each other. They work in unison. And so what I'm working on these days is really advancing professional coaching with ICF San Antonio. And what we're doing is bringing quality programming, like you just mentioned, in terms of the neuroscience, how our brain reacts when it is not fully optimized or when it is fully reaching its potential. But there's that piece that you mentioned in terms of the future self, which is part of the heart, the desire, the dream that people have. So at ICF San Antonio, what we're doing is really advancing how professional coaching is connecting the hearts and minds of people to unleash that potential. And we do it through, as I said before, quality programming. But there's another piece to it that I'm really happy to share with folks, especially for some of you who may be starting your own coaching practices. in San Antonio specifically, or for those who are considering to receive an ICF certification, we are moving to provide pro bono coaching to our community because COVID has disrupted every single person, every single business, every single home. And what we want to do is respond by providing some form of guidance, stability, because it does start in what's in our heart is it goes in our mind. We start running all of these tapes. And so coaches in the greater San Antonio community, what we're doing is we are providing pro bono coaching to individuals, to managers, to organizations as part of our way to help the community reestablish this new normal. I know we keep hearing that, but the reality is it is a new normal. Working from home is a new normal. And when you have kids, when you have a family, or you have other demands, or whether it's people, whether it's technology, or whether your system, the way you've organized yourself, coaches are really coming in to help transition people. So that's one thing that I'm currently up to with ICF San Antonio, but with Digital Creative Institute. Now that is an amazing business, because what we're doing is we're bringing in entry-level digital marketers, and we just added data analysts and cybersecurity specialists where they're starting their career. Now imagine this, and I'm sure many of you are even in this place. There are college students, high school students that have graduated in 2020. What do? Their dream of entering a job has been totally capsized. They have moved into this ocean of this world, this job market where they have to work from home. So the anticipation of going to a business and, being in an office and being able to work with your coworkers, it's totally been disrupted. So with Digital Creative Institute, we have really been working with our coaches, and this is where I lead a team of performance coaches, and I'll explain what that means. But these performance coaches come along the side of these apprentices that are starting their first job at home on a computer with not a lot of human connection. So equipping them with strategies on how they can be very effective while they're learning their new job, new skill, and developing the relationship with their manager. And that is powerful when you have a coach that is guiding you along your side. I don't know about you, John, but when I started my career, I didn't have a coach. I had to kind of fumble and figure things out on my own. But the coach comes along the side of the apprentice and really helps them as they transition, as they onboard. And there's more that I can talk about in terms of what we do as coaches to help them.
Right. It is, I feel like it is what you're describing is the future model of education, where there's a very specific target objective of this is the skill you want to learn. And then you also work with the coach. In many ways, that coach is the work with the coach is what grounds all the other work that someone does in their life, which is it flips the model, where it really it's does. The school that somehow provides the foundation. It's not the school.
It isn't the school. And Brad Voller, he is the CEO and founder of Digital Creative Institute. He actually wrote a fantastic book called Accelerated Distance Learning. And what he discovered in that book is that it takes people, takes relationships to help you succeed. And he talks about mentors, he talks about coaches, he talks about just your own network. And in this day and age, we have to be very creative in terms of how we're reaching out and developing the relationship in order to learn and grow. We've got, thank God we have Google and we have other search engines that can really provide us with a tremendous amount of information and knowledge. But it pales in comparison to when a person engages in the relationship with someone who is going to guide them along their way and develop that relationship. And coaching does that. Coaching does that.
Yeah, I mean, this is consistent with Tinto's work too in education, where you're looking at the number one factor in what helps a student with engagement and ultimately to stay and graduate is whether or not they have a meaningful relationship with someone on campus.
That's it.
Number one factor. And that's amazing to me, is if they have that, then, I mean, that means so many other things probably are in place. They probably have someone to talk to about, financial things coming up. They have someone to talk to about academic things coming up. Those are secondary to that relationship. So the research is robust. Like you're talking to, it's there. So you in the training, what did you find surprising about your training course?
My experience when I was at CoachingEDU.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. So I didn't get to tell you the story on how I got here, but I met Brad when I disrupted my career. I was in banking and the energy business, and I wanted to really learn about digital marketing. And so at any rate, I met Brad and he said, "You really need to be our coach." And I said, "I am not a coach." Now, this was over 6 years ago before I got my certifications. And Brad really said, "Brad, Aurora, you need to get your coaching certification." I said, "All right, Brad, I'll go get it."
Nice.
Talk to my spiritual mentors, my family, and they're like, "Yeah, this is really a great idea." So I never do anything where I just stay focused on one thing. I have to do many things. So I decided to enroll in CoachingEDU and an IPEC course.
Okay.
And I did them both at the same time. And here's what I learned. CoachingEDU was one of the best experiences that I had. And what you were teaching was these principles that, of course, IPEC was teaching as well. Now, IPEC also has they have something called energy leadership. But what I loved about my experience about CoachingEDU was that I had a group where I was experiencing all of the core competencies that ICF really does have as a standard. And more importantly, there are a couple of strategies, techniques that you all use that I use all the time.
Right.
I use them all the time. I use these techniques, no offense, IPEC. I love you, IPEC. No offense. But I use these techniques more than the techniques that I learned at IPEC.
Thank you. I did not see that coming. It's interesting, right? Being in competition with IPEC and, this whole idea of what we're trying to do. The perspective I get to is that everyone's on the same team and we're all and the biggest obstacle that I think the coaching profession faces is indifference. Yes. I think I can do this on my own. And that's the biggest obstacle that any coach who's starting out establishing their own business, any training organization, any consulting, advising. And it's squaring with that is, I think what it requires is, it's just, entrepreneurship, it's a spiritual journey as well. Like you have to get to a place of peace.
I love that. Matter of fact, I was reading a little bit about the difference between the gifts and talents. But before I get into that, I just want to also mention that, IPEC is a fantastic program. I want to say
we'll edit that part out of the podcast.
Outstanding. They are outstanding. But one of the takeaways before I talk about the gifts and talents that I had with CoachingEDU, the instructors. Mm-hmm. The instructors were fantastic, and the people that were coming in, why? They were committed. They were committed to the coaching profession, and they really wanted to be able to make a change in people's lives. And so the secret technique that I absolutely loved from CoachingEDU is the inner critic and the future self. Because when you talk about at the core, as a business owner, it's a spiritual journey. At the core, it's our inner critic that holds us back. But it's also that vision and that dream going forward of our future self that keeps us motivated, that keeps us moving forward. And I will tell you that at the core of who we are, we have a decision to make when we're on this spiritual journey. We can believe the truth about ourselves, that we're made in a beautiful, fashioned way, and that we each have gifts and talents, just like our clients. We each have gifts and talents, and we're all on, as you said, John, I believe that we're on a spiritual journey. And for me, the difference between that gift and talent in your journey are the signs. Right. You have to learn as a coach, as an entrepreneur, to read the signs. And this is where a lot of the pragmatic inquiry that I use comes into play. And pragmatic inquiry is no different than coaching, the coaching you would apply, which is you begin attentively with a challenging question. So the challenging question that you're on your journey, whether you're a coach and you're starting your business, am I on the right path? Ask yourself the question, what's the challenging question? Who do I serve? Wonderful. The next step, pragmatically, is explore that openly. Begin to identify who are those people. But again, look at the signs, look at the patterns. You know, there's a difference between déjà vu and vujade. Déjà vu is things that have happened you've experienced before. Right. But vujade, you've never experienced them. But there is something that is calling you to serve the people that you want to coach, you want to serve. So you explore that openly, and then you move into interpreting imaginatively. And what that means is that journey, that spiritual journey, really looking at the signs. I love to move a little bit more about me, but I love the prophetic. And the reason I love the prophetic is because your thoughts are your thoughts. You may come up with what you know, but sometimes when you're sitting there, or sometimes you may even have a conversation or driving in your car, well, you know, we're a little less of that, but you just have this idea, or sometimes you get this picture in your mind and you're like, where did this come from? And it's going to come from two places. It's going to come from something that is trying to keep you on the path, a distraction, or it's going to be a sign, part of that journey that you're taking to grow your business, right, serve your clients. And then you make the decision. And the decision has to be a responsible decision. You have to calculate the cost, the benefit as you're on that journey. And then this is where you begin to act courageously. Courage is not in the absence, well, it can be, but it's not in the absence of confidence. Sometimes our confidence may waver, but if we have a strong conviction that this is who we are serving, you've got to follow your conviction with courage.
Yeah, I mean, and the root etymology of the word courage is the same as heart in Latin. It's core, right? So you're tapping into things that bring us back full circle. Right?
Full circle to the heart.
Yeah. Let's say your future self were to walk in the room right now. What would she say?
My future self her name is Evangelina. And she would say, stay the course and continue to spread the message of courage, of truth, and love. That's what she would say.
When you put yourself in that perspective and think this next decade, right? This next big deal. What aspect of the next decade is the most exciting, or you feel like will be the most meaningful?
There's many different perspectives to answer that question. And one perspective is just for humanity. You know, what can we expect for humanity? I really sense that we're going to see transformation in cultures. And the reason for that is because even though we're disconnected from people, this pandemic has taught us how to reconnect. It has also taught us to be intentional. And when the time comes, when we are moving about more freely, we're going to look back. Humanity will look back and it will say, what did I do with the time that was given to me? And then they're going to look further and they're going to say, and this is the evidence of my fruit, of what I was sowing during this period of time. So I'm a big believer that there is great hope, because the way that we're reconnecting with people and business and our community, it's taken it to another level. We've had more richer conversations and we're much more intentional.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you look at historically what happens after pandemics. You have the Middle Ages, the Black Plague, the bubonic plague. Then you have the Renaissance. You have 1918 flu, and then you have all the what happened in the huge technological advances of the 20s and 30s. I mean, it's pretty remarkable how resilient humanity is as a collective. That, and you see it. I mean, there are what it's happening now especially in the US, where the movements, the social movements that are happening now in conjunction with this pandemic are really going to bring everyone to the next levels of awareness, next levels of action. So yeah, I think history is what says a big yes to what you just said. Absolutely. I'm excited. I mean, really, truly, like when you look at it, it'll be interesting to see what comes up. What do you have cooking now, and how can the coach training EDU community best support you, or how can they find out more about what you're up to and what you're doing?
Yeah, great question. Well, it's easy. For ICF San Antonio, it's just following our social handles at ICF San Antonio. For Digital Creative Institute, where we do a lot of coaching, that we have those handles as well. We have Digital Creative Institute and also DCI Talent as handles, although we're going through a rebrand. So that's going to be really interesting. But in terms of how coaching, if you are interested in how other coaches have grown or growing their business, one of the things that we're doing is elevating the awareness and the conversation on how coaches can grow their business through one of our learning tracks, through business development. And we are becoming more intentional to provide that type of programming for coaches. One of the areas that we have found is that coaches, they just need a few tips on how to grow their business, because they didn't come to CoachingEDU to learn how to grow their business. I mean, you do have some elements to that, and they're very powerful. However, the essence of what you're doing is helping them build their coaching skill. So associations like ICF or other coaching associations, I would encourage not only CoachingEDU to plug in and be a part of that, but for the coaching fellows of CoachingEDU to plug in with a coaching association, network with fellow coaches. and learn, continue to develop not only your skill, but how you want to grow your business. There's one other thing that I wanted to mention. In San Antonio, we're also building a strong partnership with the Association of Change Management Professionals. Now, context. At the global level, the global ACMP and global ICF are coming together, and they are really beginning to understand how can we support each discipline. So the discipline of change management professionals really works on the process of an organization in order to align its business to deliver on a specific service or product. And so change managers come in, they're the scrum masters, they're the agile coaches, they're the people that are very heavy on process and change in systems technology. But ICF coaches are coming in, and these are the people that are really coming alongside the people to help guide them on having the courage to usher in change. So there's this synergy between the change management professionals and the coaches, where you bring the organization and the people together. And that is one of the areas that you're going to start seeing more of in the marketplace, especially if you're entering the world of coaching. You're going to see that it takes both, especially if you're working with businesses who are wanting to develop a strategy, or they have a strategy. Now they want to activate the how. How do they get it done? And so executive coaching or leadership coaching, this is where a lot of the coaches come in and really help them deal with their heart of whether it's resisting the change or whether it's embracing the change, and how they can encourage their team to usher in change. So those kinds of changes are happening, or those kinds of initiatives are happening in the marketplace that are really going to be transformative. So I would encourage the coaches to get involved at the local level. Volunteer on a committee, volunteer with a chapter, keep your skills sharp. And CoachingEDU, continue to talk to the chapters and speak to the chapters about what you're learning and how you are continuing to provide professional development to the coaches.
Yeah, I think what you're speaking to is a larger movement in the executive world to fully embrace coaching. And a lot of the ICF came into existence to provide structures and support for executive coaches because they needed something that would provide guidelines around ethical questions. Like, let's say you're paid by the boss, but you're working with this other person, and the boss asks you questions. Like, the ICF is there to give you guidelines and standards and all of those good things. And historically, if you look at what creates change in education, it's oftentimes first education will adopt what works well in business environments, because business leaders put pressure and put a premium on, we want to hire people who have this specific skill set. That gets translated down into colleges, universities, that gets translated into high schools. It's all connected, but education tends to be what the thing that changes, after. And it's exciting to hear you talk about this, because it's a whole new, like, when you're entering into the workplace, it's a whole new world. It's not just, okay, this is my job, I'm doing it, where people don't matter. I think what's the most exciting thing to me is that the business world is really sprinting towards this idea that if we take care of the people, then the team functions better, and it's a competitive advantage.
They become a high-performing team.
Bottom line, competitive advantage. And it's not just this theoretical pie in the sky, woo-woo, let's hold hands. It's no, this will act, there is hard data. And if you don't do it, fine. But someone else will, and it will come out.
It will come out. And it also speaks to, John, going back to raising the level of awareness of professional coaching. Right. Professional coaching, when you think about an individual that comes into an organization that works with individuals or teams, and I've worked with many coaches. When I was an executive, I was coached a lot. I was the pioneer. They were like, oh, Aurora, let's have her get, coached. And I experienced a lot of different ways to, that coaches work and coaching works. But one of the things that I absolutely took away, and this is part of what we designed for the Digital Creative Institute Apprenticeship Program, coaching program, is that there are going to be 3 types of individuals that come along your side. One is going to be the coach, and the coach is always going to believe that the client has the answers. And it's true. They have the answers. They just need a coach to guide them and ask the right powerful questions. And then there's going to be the consultant. And many of us who have our careers, maybe we're coming out of our career and going into coaching, the resistance that you have to fight is which hat you're going to wear. And so absolutely, can you be a consultant and a coach? Yes. But you have to be clear on what that relationship is when you are developing the agenda with a client. And when the time comes, absolutely take off your hat and provide consulting advice, but be clear and intentional about what role you're playing in that conversation in the moment. And that too can be very powerful. And the third is really a mentor, coming along their side and providing them guidance, but again, be very clear on what role you're playing. So inside of organizations, there is absolutely a need for coaches to come along the side of individuals and help them deal not only with their own energy, their emotional energy, because we're all energy, right? We all unleash and release this form of energy. That's actually one of the things I love about Bruce Schneider's IPEC energy leadership, because he does talk about the levels of energy, and it correlates with Daniel Goleman's book on EQ, where where he talks about the 4 quadrants of emotional intelligence, and self-awareness is very key. But once you have self-awareness, then what do you do with that? Well, you got to learn how to manage your emotions, because you may be aware that you blow up or you constantly are talking, but being aware and to manage where that emotion is coming from is powerful. And then, of course, the other quadrants of relationship management and social awareness are equally important. But self-management is critical. And that's where a lot of coaches, beyond the self-awareness, they get to that self-management, which is key.
Yeah, it's the dance. I've been playing in this space of what is the relationship between, we'll call it pure coaching, where the coach offers no knowledge base, versus knowledge coaching, where a coach has some expert knowledge, more consultant, like this is what, for instance, like even using the energy coaching of, okay, these are the 4 quadrants. How are you doing in these four quadrants? Providing some basis of knowledge, but then allowing coaching to come in, which I think is probably, that's what the CoachingEDU is built on. And IPEC, a lot of these organizations are looking at, here's a structure, here's a framework. Let's use this framework, but let's infuse it with coaching. It's not, where do you see, or what's the interaction between, let's call it knowledge coaching versus, I don't know, not empty coaching, but just like, I want to call it like client-led coaching?
One word: intuition. The more that we can, right?
It speaks to like, yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So when I have no prior knowledge or understanding of an environment or an individual or their background or where they came from, I don't have any of that prior knowledge. I've had many that would call first phone call, and they're wanting to set the agenda. I will listen to my intuition. I will pay attention to what I'm hearing, not only in the physical form, but what I'm hearing that is not being said. I will pay attention to if I get a vision or a sight, or I see a picture or a symbol, I'll pay attention to that. I will pay attention that if there is like this sense, like something comes, I mean, I have had situations where all of a sudden, like I would feel something in my stomach, or I would feel something in an area of my body that I've never felt before. And I would inquire. I would go into inquiry and I would say, I'm picking this up. Does this resonate with you? And I will tell you, John, 99.9%, they will say, how did you know?
Right.
So to me, that knowledge coach versus walking into pure knowledge, it's like the difference between at ICF, a PCC and an MCC. I don't know, I shouldn't say that because some of them have those gifts and talents, but it's really tapping in to that intuition. It's powerful.
Right. It happens when you have the confidence to know for sure that you're listening empathetically. Like when you know that you're listening level 2 without a doubt, then intuition plays such a powerful role because it's not coming necessarily from you. And there's so much power in that. I think the deeper thing I'm hearing too is whenever any coach has different options where I can go this way, I can, take road A, B, or C. It's not that any one of those roads is going to be better, but to ask yourself, I'm equally comfortable taking any of these roads. Which one is going to be most useful for my client? And when you're asking yourself that question, congratulations, you are in the right spot. That's it. That's the idea, is to be equally comfortable as a coach, so that you can be of service.
Well, it goes back to your purpose and why you chose to be a coach. And I know for me personally, the reason that I chose the coaching profession is because for years, I was always curious. For years, I would say, well, why do they think that way? Well, why do they feel that way? Where did that idea come from? Where did that thought come from? And so intuitively, I was already asking many of those questions. And, my top 5 strengths, for those of us who do Strength Finder, it's connectedness. That's where my intuition is so high. Mm. The other is learner, strategic, developer, and belief. Not in that order, but connectedness is my number 1. My developer kicks in, and it's like, I see everyone with potential. Everyone. Mm. So as coaches, I guarantee that many of you see that. You not only see that in yourself, but you see it in others. You see the possibility of how people can grow. You see that they just with a few more, perhaps coaching into their awareness, or having them connect with, when I was talking about deja vu and vuja de, connecting those patterns of things that have happened to them in their life, and having them use those gifts, those natural gifts and strengths, and building them forward. It's powerful.
Aurora, we have to wrap it. I'm conscious of the time, thinking, oh my goodness, we didn't even get to how you grew up, influences, tips for other coaches, all of it. But let's go with at least, what would be your advice to someone who's just starting out on coach training, or just starting out business building?
It always goes back to your why. And when you ask yourself, why am I doing this? and you know that the answer that has come up to you is because I want to serve others, or I want to help others grow, or I want to help businesses grow, whatever that why answer is, that's your anchor. That's your anchor. And then move forward. Talk to people. Coaches need coaches too. Talk to people and have them guide you. And also use the time to reflect. If you sit down and write down your challenging question, physically write it down with a pencil and paper, or pen and paper, and you ask yourself that question, I challenge you to do that, because you will find the answers. You have the answers. So have the courage to move forward, and never forget your why.
This is lovely, Aurora. Thank you. Thank you for this time, for sharing your wisdom, for bringing it, and holding down San Antonio. Sounds amazing. So if you want to connect with Aurora, please go to the CoachingEDU blog. There will be there's a post there. We're going to get back to getting these podcasts into recordings very soon. So thank you to those who are with us right now. And for those who are listening later in the podcast, thanks for listening to the podcast, for being a part of the larger CoachingEDU community. Thank you again, Aurora. This has been another
my pleasure. Thank you, John. And good luck, coaches. You're here for a reason. Let's go change the world.
That's perfect.